The plastic grocery bags sat on the kitchen floor, overstuffed, bottles clinking against one another. My father stood over them like a drill sergeant, pointing at me with the same hand he'd just used to slam the car trunk shut. "Pick them up," he barked. "All of them. Don't stand there like a useless scarecrow." I had just finished a 12-hour shift at the diner. My legs throbbed, my arms ached, and the thought of carrying 10 bags up the stairs made me want to collapse. I shook my head quietly. "Dad, I'm exhausted. You and Mom bought them. You can put them away." The silence in the room was sharp, heavy, and then his boot connected with my shin. The pain ripped through me like lightning, so sudden and vicious I collapsed onto the tile floor. My leg bent awkwardly, fire shooting up my thigh as I gasped for air. I clutched at it, terrified something had snapped. My mother's laughter sliced through the pain. She leaned against the counter, her wine glass half full, her eyes glittering with cruelty. "Look at her," she sneered. "She'll crawl like trash, just like she was born to." Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. My vision blurred. I pushed myself up onto my elbows, teeth clenched, trying to steady my breathing. My father towered over me, chest heaving, his face twisted in disgust. "Don't you ever refuse me again. You think you're too good to carry groceries? Trash doesn't get to choose." The sound of Rachel's heels clicked in from the hallway. My sister, perfectly dressed as always, stopped in the doorway, smirk curling across her lips. "What happened now?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Your sister decided she's too important for chores," Mom said, sipping her wine. "Your father gave her a reminder." Rachel tilted her head, her eyes sliding down to me, still clutching my leg on the floor. "Figures. She's always been dramatic. Maybe she'll finally learn to stay in her place." They laughed together, my father, my mother, my sister, a chorus of cruelty I had heard my entire life. I bit my lip so hard it bled, forcing myself not to cry out. Because if I cried, they won. If I begged, they triumphed. I pulled myself up, my legs screaming with every movement, and limped down the hall. Behind me, my father barked, "Don't forget who feeds you." My mother's laugh followed, sharp and merciless. Rachel's voice cut through it all. She should be grateful we even let her live here. I shut my bedroom door and pressed my forehead against it, my breath coming in shallow gasps. My leg pulsed with pain, but the fire inside me was hotter, stronger. They wanted me crawling? They'd regret the day they wished that curse onto me. Because I wasn't going to crawl. I was going to rise, and when I did, I'd make sure they felt every ounce of pain they had ever given me until the ground beneath them broke. The next morning, my leg had stiffened so badly I could barely stand. Every step sent a shock of pain up my thigh, but I forced myself into my diner uniform anyway. I couldn't afford to call off rent, bills. Life didn't stop just because my father wanted to remind me I was trash. As I limped out of my room, I heard them at the kitchen table. Mom sipping her coffee, Dad flipping through the newspaper, Rachel scrolling on her phone. They looked up in unison when they heard my uneven steps. "Pathetic," Mom said flatly. Dad didn't even lower the paper. "If you can walk, you can work. Don't milk it." Rachel chuckled without looking up. "I bet customers will tip more if they see her crawling around with their orders." Their laughter followed me out the door, echoing in my head with every limp to the bus stop. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. Something inside me was shifting, calcifying. For years I had told myself their abuse was just noise, that if I ignored it I could survive. But yesterday proved something new. Survival wasn't enough. Ignoring them only fed them more. I needed to make them feel helpless. I needed to make them depend on me the way they'd forced me to depend on them. At work, I kept running scenarios through my head. What did they need most? What were the things they couldn't live without? Dad's pride wasn't just about being strong, it was about control. He barked and people obeyed. Mom's entire existence was built on her reputation, the neighbors who thought she was a classy hostess, the church ladies who envied her perfect family. Rachel lived for comfort, her endless makeup kits, her designer shoes, her smug security that someone else would always pay for her messes. And me? I had been the one paying. Always. By the end of my shift, I had a plan. It wasn't about exposing them to the world. No photos, no videos, no public circus. This was going to be quiet but brutal. I would take back every ounce of control they had stolen, not by begging them to change, not by screaming at them, but by making sure that, piece by piece, their comforts slipped out of reach until they were the ones crawling. I started small. Dad always demanded I drive him to the bar on Fridays, said he needed a chauffeur since Trash had no social life. That night, when he barked at me, I didn't argue. I just dropped him off and didn't pick him up. I turned my phone off and went to bed. The next morning, I heard the story at breakfast. How he'd stumbled home on foot for 3 miles in the rain, how the other men had laughed at him when he couldn't get a ride. His face was red as he muttered about traffic and bad luck. Mom's lip curled at him, unimpressed. My chest burned with quiet satisfaction, one small crack. Then came Mom. She loved her weekly ladies' night where she bragged about her perfect children. I forgot to pick up her dry-cleaned dress. When she shrieked about having nothing to wear, I shrugged. Sorry, must have slipped my mind. She ended up showing up late, in an old outfit, and I heard her slam doors for hours afterward. Another crack. Rachel was easy. She left her designer shoes in the living room. I accidentally splashed mop water on them when I was cleaning. She screamed for 20 minutes and I just blinked at her. Guess that's what happens when you leave things in other people's way. Each little act was a thread pulled from their tapestry, and the more I pulled, the more their balance unraveled. They snapped at each other, blamed each other for things I'd orchestrated. For the first time, I wasn't the one crawling. But this was just the beginning. Because the revenge I was planning next wasn't about spilled shoes or missed rides. It was about turning their entire world upside down until they were forced to see me not as trash, but as the one who held all the power. The cracks I had started widening soon became fractures. Dad grumbled when his drinking buddies stopped offering him rides, saying, "You can't even keep your daughter in line?" Mom grew bitter when her ladies' nights turned cold after her perfect hostess image slipped. Rachel sulked constantly, stomping through the house as if she were the victim of the universe. I kept my silence. Every smirk, every shrug, every carefully timed mistake was my reminder. I wasn't powerless anymore, but the real revenge was still coming. One evening, Dad ordered me to unload firewood from the truck. "Get moving," he snapped, "and don't limp around like a cripple." I stood still, hands in my pockets. "Do it yourself," I said flatly. The room went quiet. His face darkened, the same look he had given me before he kicked me down. He lunged toward me, but this time I didn't flinch. "I wouldn't try that," I said softly. "You're already weak. Everyone sees it. Remember the night you had to walk home in the rain? Remember the neighbors laughing? Imagine how much more they'd laugh if they saw you flat on your back." His eyes flickered. For the first time in my life, I saw hesitation. Mom stormed in, her heels clicking, eyes blazing. "Don't you dare talk to him like that. You're nothing. Trash that should crawl on the floor for us." I smiled coldly. "Then crawl with me." She froze. I pulled my phone out, scrolling through a few things I had saved, not videos of abuse, not pictures, but receipts. The unpaid bills they had shoved on me, the notes Rachel left calling me their maid, the texts Mom sent bragging to her friends about making me cover utilities while she bought wine. One by one, I laid them on the table. Dad's hand twitched, Mom's face drained, Rachel's mouth dropped open. "You think you've made me crawl all these years," I said, my voice low, shaking but steady. "But now you'll crawl, because every dollar I ever gave you, every chore I did, every bruise you left, I kept track. And the day I walk out of here, I take all of it with me. You can't hide without me. You can't live without me. Not anymore." Rachel scoffed, but her voice cracked. "You wouldn't dare." I leaned forward. "Try me." That night, I left the house not empty-handed, but with every bit of documentation and control I'd been building. I took the keys to the truck I had been paying off in Dad's name. I emptied the emergency fund Mom had always made me deposit for her. I canceled Rachel's credit card I had co-signed under pressure. By morning, the house was in chaos. Dad shouted about the truck being gone. Mom screamed about bounced payments. Rachel cried when she realized her card was useless. And me? I sat at my friend's apartment, sipping coffee, my leg propped on a pillow, listening to the voicemail notifications pile up. They called me every name in the book. They begged, they threatened. But the last message was different. Dad's voice hoarse, small. Please, come back. We can't do this without you. For the first time, I laughed. They had called me trash. They had wished for me to crawl. But in the end, it was them broke, powerless, and begging on their knees who learned what crawling really felt like. And I didn't even need to lift a finger. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.